Nearly 42,000 people here today to see the shootout. Make no mistake, the hard laps are tomorrow, but today it'll be the hot laps. Here's Lee and Neil.
Isn't it a wonderful sight? Everyone in the sunshine about to see the fastest 10 drivers from regular qualifying. It's a process of elimination. There's been plenty of practice. The drivers, the majority of drivers that is, have had plenty of time on the Mount Panorama circuit. Regular qualifying was yesterday, as per the normal way in the V8 Supercar Championship Series, and that is two groups, an upper and lower 50% based on cumulative times, the best times from free practice, the first 3 sessions that was. They had more than double the amount of qualifying, 45 minutes for each group, and this is how we have ended up with these 10 drivers and the order in which they will start. Now this is in reverse to how they actually qualified. Stephen Johnson in the First Rock Home Loans Ford Falcon for Dick Johnson Racing, his father's team, is first out on track. And the way it works, if you've never seen the top 10 shootout before, they get an out lap to get into the zone, to get into the rhythm, to get as much heat into the tyres, brakes, etc. Build speed, and then once they cross the line, it is on. One flying lap.
Lee, here's a couple of numbers to consider. This time last year, the shootout pole ultimately went to Craig Lowndes with a time of 2 minute 8.5. Have a look at the temperatures back then. 12 degrees air, track was 16. We'll get a verification from the boys downstairs shortly, but I would expect they'd be at least double that. Very, very different conditions this year, and that will have an impact on the speed. The fastest man of the weekend so far has been Mark Scaife, the only driver to break into the very high sixes. And so now it's showtime about who can present the best possible performance over the 17 corners, 6.2 Ks, Greg.
Neil, just spoken to the Dunlop technicians. Air temperature currently 28 degrees. On track, it's 35. Now you can compare that to this morning session. The air temperature is identical, but the track temperature is 3 degrees cooler than this morning's or today's final practice session before the shootout.
So that's a good sign. We saw some good speed this morning, particularly from Rick Kelly. So is this track going to enable a driver to eclipse Greg Murphy's ultimate fastest time around this circuit of a 2 minute 6.85 lap time? We will see. Mark Scaife certainly came close yesterday, just over a tenth of a second away from bettering Murphy's time. There's been a lot of talk about this. Well, the talk can stop because we're here now. It is top 10 shootout time. And this man on track, Stephen Johnson, has come so close so many times to standing on the podium here in the famous 17. His best result has been 4th on 3 occasions, and this is his 13th start. He's still a relatively young man, but he is very, very experienced on the mountain. As Steve Chalker, the team manager, his father, David Siegel, they all watch on.
He really loves this racetrack, and he always produces something special here. I spoke to him earlier in the day, and he talked about this weird little oil leak they discovered coming from an oil gallery plug at the back of the block, spitting oil on the rear tyres through the course of the weekend. They only picked it up late. Just sat on the hard cut on the rev limiter and the gear change there from 2nd to 3rd. That can be just a tiny bit costly, maybe a tenth or two. Just building up to a whisker over 250 kilometres per hour, braking hard now into turn 2. 3rd gear, right on line, just skipped the rear wheel over the ripple strip a little, slid it out, crossed the exit strip.
Now as Stephen climbs the mountain, our Darryl Beattie is up there. He's positioned over near Forest Elbow to give us the update. This is Stephen's 3rd top 10 appearance this season. But I mentioned that he's incredibly experienced on the mountain. This is his 6th top 10 appearance here at Mount Panorama.
Dropping in now, Reed Park, Sulman Park, then the run to McPhillamy. Very early on the throttle of McPhillamy, sat it up on top of the ripple strip there. A few people have been caught by that this weekend. Aggressively over the top of Skyline, the run through the S's, the dipper, 2nd gear. Car didn't fly too much on 2 wheels. The car behaviour looks to be very good. He had no complaints about it when I spoke to him earlier today.
Stephen Richards on the limiter into Forest. A little bit of push as he turned into the corner, but good exit speed for Stephen Johnson.
It's all about getting the throttle into 100% as early as possible to make this huge run down Conrod Straight, Australia's fastest straight, leading to the fastest corner. Just on 300 Ks, uses the apron to turn in.
It's a big ask. You must perform. You only have one lap. It's a slight pinch brake there on the left front left. Now, his best time in qualifying was a 2-minute 8.11. We'll see how this compares. One corner to go for Stephen Johnson.
Just hopping in a little on the rear brakes then, but kept it on line. Good lap, a couple of little fluffs here and there, but no big deal. And the time for Stephen is a 9.5.
It is very difficult to eclipse your qualifying time in the one-lap shootout. It's not impossible, but it is a hard task. And Stephen's laid down a time to chase of a 2:09.5. Here's the Zinger replay in the chase.
No great problem there. It was just as he began to offer the car up to the left-hander, so it unweights the front tyre on the left as the weight rolls to the right. Didn't have the same footing under the front of the car, so it just grabbed a little. It didn't induce any real understeer there, and he still managed to make the apex.
Now imagine this, you go from someone like Stephen Johnson, who's just finished his 6th top 10 shootout over 13 appearances. This young fellow, Dean Canto, is about to begin his first ever top 10 shootout on the mountain for Gary Rogers Motorsport, and here we go. What a moment for Dean Canto.
Nice job through one. He's been looking for a little more front grip in this car this weekend. He was on a great lap yesterday and he made a tiny mistake going into the final corner. At that point, he was 1 or 2 tenths up on the time that he used to get him into this shootout.
Thought it was a very realistic approach from team owner Gary Rogers. He said, look, we're not really going to be a shot for pole position, but let's give it our best anyway. But at the same time, keep a sensible head. Up into the tyre power cutting. Canto has been clean so far.
Graphic up there a moment ago of the 3 sectors around Mount Panorama, and yesterday in qualifying, Mark Scape was the fastest man in Sector 1. He did a 51.61. He was also fastest in Sector 2 with a 41 even. It was Rick Kelly that was the fastest man in Sector 3. Green box references Dean versus Steve. This is what it looks like on the run to the Dipper. Lots of blind corners at Bathurst. It's the gear change up to third. Just touching on 7,500 revs in third on the run to Forest Elbow. Darryl?
He nearly looked a little slower on his turn-in compared to Stephen Johnson. A little slower in the middle of the corner, but not as tidy on the exit. He looked like he lost a bit of pace through the exit of this turn.
Well, the clock says that he's going just fine, 8 tenths of a second faster than Stephen Johnson.
Just noticed those enormous skid marks on the road there from the chopper as well, which I presume came from Stephen Richards earlier in the weekend.
The car turned aggressively left at about 270 kilometres an hour as Dean Canto is about to finish his first flying lap in the top 10 shootout on the mountain, and so far so good for Canto.
It's a good lap. Great young bloke, works hard at his motor racing, gives 110%.
Nice lap.
8.5.
Good
2 minutes
lap.
8.5 for Dean Canto.
Nice job, mate. Nice job.
And there is team owner Gary Rogers. That deserves a big clap. Solid performance. And that's all you can ask, to be clean, tidy and fast. And he well and truly eclipses Stephen Johnson's lap to the tune of a full second.
Well, Stephen Johnson, it looked as though the car was a little nervous just coming into the S's, but on the whole, though, pretty reasonable, safe lap. I guess this is a good race car.
Yeah, Russ, it's a good race car. I had a bit of brake trouble there. The same brakes that we actually used in the warm-up, and this morning it was good, but we must have had some heat soak put through it, and the pedals pulsing really bad and causing a lot of rear locking, so made it a little bit interesting for the lap, but you know, that's probably as good as we could do on old tyres as well.
Main thing is the 1,000. We wish you the best for that.
Thanks, mate.
All right, third competitor out on track. It is one of those sleek black machines. Yes, the Jack Daniels Commodore. Car number 7, Stephen Richards. And folks, if you haven't seen any of the news footage, any of the pictures from early in the weekend or our broadcast from either of the days, this man here had one hell of a ride first practice session. Neil mentioned the skid marks on Conrod Straight. They had some kind of a rear tyre problem, whether it was a slow leak, whatever it was, it let go and sent Stephen straight into the concrete wall at about 270 kilometres an hour. The team did a wonderful job to get the car back on track, and he did a great job yesterday to make it to the shootout.
3 of the 4 corners of that car were brutalised in that accident, and the crew worked virtually around the clock, nearly a 24-hour process. But she's brand new, according to Larry, and look at that split, nearly 2/10 up on Dean Canto. Great recovery from the Jack Daniels team. Stephen was pretty happy with the performance of the car subsequent to the incident. Front right bottomed out a little bit there on the exit of McPhillamy. This man's been a race winner here, a lot of experience at Bathurst. He's had great success at this racetrack. He knows it well. He knows how to get the most out of a car at this track and how to dial it in to make it a good one-lap car, and it's showing up like that at the moment. Darryl?
Stephen Richards definitely on the cut, a little more than Canto, and he looks the better through here. Nice tight line, no noise from the tyres, no protest. Look good, Stephen Richards.
Good call, Daz. He is. He's almost 2.5 up on Dean Canto's time. So this man is heading to the top of the timing order. If he can keep it clean and fast through the chase. And that is serious commitment.
Very fast on the chase. Car behaviour looked very good. It's all about controlling the mass and the weight of the car down there, and each year the cars get better in that regard. It's going to be a great lap from Stephen Richards. New deal for this team in 2006 with Jack Daniels, and it's an important weekend for them.
2:08.53. Richards goes to the top by just 0.05 of a second. His teammate Paul Dumbrell and the team look on. Joe Bremner, the team manager. Well done, Stephen. That was very tidy, very slick. And that's why he stands at the top of this timing order. 3 down, we've got 7 to go. Don't go anywhere. The top 10 shootout continues on the other side of this.
Stephen Richards, considering the start to the weekend that you had, that's not a bad effort in the shootout. Do you think there was more this car was perhaps even you were capable of than an 8.5?
That was as good as we could do on that lap, suffering a little bit of understeer, so just the front tyres just take a little bit of time to come up to pressure, so no, I'm happy with that.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks.
Yeah, so he should be. It was a pretty satisfying lap. It looked clean, tidy and fast. Now to last year's pole sitter and this year's championship leader, the 888 Better Electrical Ford of Craig Lowndes. Left pit lane a few moments ago to a massive roar from the crowd. Plenty of cheers for this man. He is one of the favourites in the field. However, this weekend, strangely enough, interestingly enough, has not really been performing to the Lowndes that we know. Especially the form that he put in last year, and the pressure's on in the championship. He's only got 27 points over Rick Kelly, who is on song this weekend. So a good lap here will go a long way in making Craig feel a lot better about tomorrow's big one. There's the Brains Trust. Roland Dane in the middle and Campbell Little on the right. That's the man we hear all the time on the team radio communicating to Craig Lowndes, his confidant, the man who urges him through and walks him through the tight situation, the man who has walked side by side with him to get to the top of this championship this year. Lowndes' lap is on.
Hasn't had a pole position in 2006. Only 3 men have so far this year. Jason Bright, Mark Scaife and Garth Tander. Excellent run into and out of turn 1 for Lowndes. Pole here last year. The target time then was a 2-minute 8.59. There's the shift to 5th. Looked like he had a little bit of trouble turning in there in the early part of 1. Or should I say 2, but it's not unusual because sometimes it takes a couple of corners for the tyres to fully come up to pressure and therefore temperature. They do start them higher. Starting cold tyre pressures are much higher for these shootouts than they would normally be.
Fastest lap thus far is Stephen Richards at a 2:08.5. Craig's qualifying lap was at 2:07.8, and as you can see, he's down by 0.2 of a second on Richards already.
So we grab a little bit of breakdown in the bottom of Reed Park there near the metal grate, just to steady the front of the car, get it on line. This is where he's very strong typically, from Skyline all the way down to where Darryl's standing, through the dipper. Darryl can detect whether he's on the limiter down here.
It's hard to pick it there, Neil. Just couldn't quite hear him as he come around the corner, but nice and tidy for Craig, but still a lot of protest from those tyres. Stephen Richards' car was much nicer tyre-wise than Craig.
It might just have a bit of a hint of understeer in the car. It certainly didn't want to turn in nicely at turn 2, and if you could hear the tyres protesting up there, Darryl, that tends to be not a good sign.
Lowndes has reeled stuff back though. He's got time back on Stephen Richards. There's not even a tenth of a second in this as he comes into the chase. Can Lowndes do it? He is well within reach. Murray's corner to go. Will the 888 man go to the top? He started in the number 1 position last year. Will it be the same this year? Lowndes goes second. 2:08.54. There is nothing in it. Richards' time was a 5:3.99 and Lowndes' time was a 5:4.03. You're talking about thousandths of a second. So Lowndes denied.
Just a whisker faster than the same time last year. Did an 8:5.990 last year.
Zinger replay, what does it show us? Whoa.
Or you can straighten out that exit on the run up through Reed Park, Sulman Park. Quickie grabbed 4th gear, and Craig didn't have a millimetre left on the left-hand side there.
They're called using all the road. Here's Russell Ingall, and quite an upbeat Russell Ingall this weekend at Mount Panorama. His fast lap begins now. Ingall consolidated his spot in the top 10 shootout late in qualifying around this time yesterday, and is pretty pleased. He feels as though his young teammate, Luke Yilden, his co-driver, is well up to the challenge. And as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, he feels the championship might be a little out of his reach. So it's all out. It's an all-out effort to win this big one on the mountain. Check how he's performing at this first split. It'll give you an indication how he compares to Richards and Lowndes.
Stone Brothers had a test at Queensland Raceway, the 6th and final test of the year for them just recently, and they described it as one of the best tests ever. Not a group of people that are prone to overstatement either. And they've come up here in a car that jumped straight on the track and was pretty competitive. Down nearly half a second on Stephen. We had a lot of tyre squeal there at Reed Park.
Russell's only been in 2 top 10 shootouts this year. This is his 3rd, and he's down by almost half a second on Stephen Richards.
While we're watching Russell exiting the chase, I can hear Craig Lowndes talking about the fact that he did have some understeer in that car, as we suggested, and that hurt him in the first half of the lap.
Darryl, how did that look?
It's interesting, and it definitely, what Neil was saying, it's been a surprise. Other than really one car, Stephen Richards, all the cars so far in the shootout have been protesting with tyre noise through the middle of the apex here at Forest Elbow.
At this point of the track, this time last year, Ingall speared off with a gearbox problem. He stays on track, but he's out of the game. He is 8.5 tenths of a second down on Stephen Richards' time. So the Jack Daniels Commodore will stay on top, but it's damage control here as Russell fights the car to the line. Where does he end up? 4th fastest, a 2:09.09.
Car broke into a bit of oversteer there right in the middle of the corner. James Courtney looking on.
All right, Rusty, don't put your forward, buddy. Don't forget the ramp up for me, please.
Greg.
Craig, it sounds as though there was an understeer issue. Is it cold tyre pressures? What was it? Do you feel you needed something more from the car?
Yeah, we used up all our sets yesterday and basically just give them a run, and you know, we just probably lacked that little bit of grip with a new tyre, which you get. Had a little bit of understeer, turn 1, turn 2. It came together quite nice across the top. Just probably lost a little bit of brakes into the chase. So yeah, there's those little things, but look, one piece and the car's good for tomorrow.
Go get him tomorrow, Craig.
Thank you.
And a nice little reminder that we're keeping Peter Brock certainly in our minds, especially this weekend. Greg Murphy, the man who owns the fastest lap around the mountain, is on track now. And Although after the previous practice session, he was not happy with the car, generally this weekend, he has been. And it's a nice sight to see the Super Cheap Auto Commodore in a strong position.
He wasn't quite as confident when I spoke to him after the final practice session today, though, with the car on full fuel.
No, not at all.
But he did a great job yesterday, and Greg always puts in a spectacular performance at this racetrack. He's had tremendous success here. Been a tough year, but he'll absolutely be a factor tomorrow. If the car's reliable, it's a very good driver combination. Right here is where Lowndes squeezed up to the fence a little bit earlier. Fourth gear run down past the metal grate.
That's not too bad, that's retrievable. It's just under 0.3 of a second. It will be hard work, but it is possible. Lowndes almost pulled back 2.5 of a second on Stephen Richards. What's Murphy got for us?
I think there's a lot of pace in the track at this point with the temperatures. The numbers are suggesting that.
Sounded pretty good from Murphy. Turned tight at the apex there. He knows that wall folds in. He got a good exit. The interesting thing here I noticed, Neil, is with all the trees over the circuit here at Forest Elbow, there's a lot of shade on this part of the track, so must be real variations in temperature on a lap around here.
Yeah, there would be.
Murphy only lost 1/1000th of a second.
Very deep under the brakes. Pulled the car up nice and straight. Used second gear through the left-hand part of the chase there, short shifting then to third. That's where he doesn't use the full amount of the 7,500 revs that are available, just so it keeps the rear of the car straight.
How does he shape up? Comes to the line, Murphy, fourth fastest. Couldn't quite match Canto's time, a 2:08.66.
I thought it was actually better there, but got nothing else in it, sorry.
You heard it for yourselves.
Yeah, good job, mate.
Steve Henderson, his race engineer, says good job. There's Cam McConville, the man who'll share the workload with Greg Murphy tomorrow. And Murphy indicating that's pretty much all we had. Greg.
Russell, you made it clear at the start of this weekend that you're chasing the race win. What was the car like for a one-lap dash?
Yeah, look, we knew it was always going to be a struggle over one lap. We've been setting the thing up for the race, and it was very slippery out there. I'm not going to chance throwing it into the wall if I don't feel comfortable. You know, we're after that win tomorrow. Apart from that, the car's very, very good.
Thanks, Russell.
From Russell Ingall to Tasman Motorsports, Jason Richards. This is truly one of the great stories of the weekend. He has shown so much pace in qualifying and top 10 shootouts. Jason has been in 5 top 10 shootouts this year, so this is his 6th. And this car was heavily damaged on the first day. So let's see what he can come up with. And he was involved in a gripping end to last year's Super Cheap Auto 1000 here at Bathurst in a head-to-head fight with Mark Scaife.
He's just 2.5 seconds away from winning the Bathurst 1000 last year after that tremendous battle. Very quick yesterday after recovering from the damage that was done in the Thursday practice session. Fastest of the second qualifiers and ultimately putting it fourth in qualifying. They made some spring and anti-roll bar changes as you see the green box pop up overnight. We tried that combination this morning, didn't like it as much, so they've gone back to as close, if not precisely, as the car was yesterday. Jason was very happy with the car yesterday.
Some guys can do it, some guys can't. What I'm talking about is the one-lap flyer. You're watching a bloke who can. He loves it. He thrives on this pressure cooker situation, and he's up. He's fastest at the moment.
On the rev limiter there, Darryl, did you spot that?
He's on the limiter a little wider because he carried that speed, Neil, but geez, that car still had good turn, even from turning in the middle of the track. He didn't get right up against the wall on entry.
He was quick coming down the hill. He hung onto it for a while. He couldn't quite pull it up as neatly as he wanted. Has that affected his run down Conrod? 2 green boxes, 0.2 up. Big moment of concentration and commitment required here. Just nudging 300 Ks. How late does he go?
This time last year, Jason made an error. He locked up and went off right here, but he keeps it on track. And he keeps his hopes of a pole position intact here at Mount Panorama Bathurst. Up by 2/10 coming into the final turn. It's looking good for the Firepower Commodore. Does Richards do it? Does he overtake Stephen Richards? Yes, he does! A 2:08.06.
Good job. P126. Sorry, an 8. Dead. Can you keep the speed up? I just worried about your car behind you.
It's a very, very good job. Well done, Jason Richards. Big pressure circumstances, and he's guaranteed himself a terrific spot for tomorrow. Maybe the top spot. We'll find out the answer to that in a moment when the big guns come out to conclude this shootout.
What a sight. Doesn't Mount Panorama look a picture this weekend? And we're not even at the big day yet. This is shootout day, race day tomorrow. Greg.
Well, Greg Murphy, you're down on the time that you set in qualifying. Has the personality of the track changed, or have you just moved away from the benchmark you had in this car?
We're just still struggling. Can't get it to do what we want it to do, and it's just pretty hard to drive. So it's a bit scary.
I hope it's right on full tanks for the race, Murph.
Cheers.
Well, Jason Richards is the new man to chase. That was a superb lap. And here's a young man full of talent and skill, and at a very young age just happens to be a 2-times winner of the Super Cheap Auto 1000. This is Rick Kelly of the Toll HSV dealer team. 3rd fastest in regular qualifying, but went even faster today.
It was great to see Jason Richards, like Neil said, come through there and hit the rev limiter on entry. He was way out in the middle of the circuit, but still had great turn down in the middle of the corner here as Rick Kelly goes through now on his warm-up lap.
Here we go, Rick just getting out of the throttle, weaving side to side, just trying to maximise his opportunity to build as much heat into the tyres and brakes that he can before going for it. And now he gets back up to speed, heading into the chase. Seven appearances in the top 10 shootout this year. And he is the man chasing, hunting Craig Lowndes for this title. He's only 27 points adrift. Heading into this round 9 of the championship. And the magic lap begins now. Does he perform or not? Well, he's just seen, and the team would have seen as he runs high, gets a little loose, and held corner up on the curb. They would have seen Jason Richards' lap. They know what is ahead of them.
Back of the car just kicked a little sideways when he first applied the brake, and then he slipped a little wide on exit, although I don't know whether or not it was to his detriment. 3rd gear, turn 2. First split comes up just exiting, cutting. Been in great form this year. Had success here, lots of it. Spot on line at the cutting. Oh, it just jumped sideways over the hump there. Probably got the car on a qualifying setup with a little bit nosy. He's just fractionally up on Jason Richards, so it just disconnected a little bit at the rear, which they tend to do a bit on the bump there, on just past the gear change from 2nd to 3rd. Takes a little while for the tyres to normalise, get the temps and pressures right up. The car should be, hopefully for his sake, perfect from about here. Maybe even a little earlier than that. Here again, the front tyres squealing with understeer.
Squeal from the tyres on that car, Neil, and the team was saying to me earlier that when Rick relaxes and enjoys the lap, he puts in a good time, but when he really tries to force the car, the time's not coming to him.
Oh, he's down by almost 1.5 tenths of a second. Very special weekend for Rick Kelly, sharing the drive with his older brother Todd. And this lap's not over with yet. He can get that back, but time is running out. Into the meat of the chase now.
Nicely on the limit into the chase, the car just sliding away on the exit. Rev limiter there, rasping away in the background, so that indicates good pace, good exit off the chase.
To the line, Rick Kelly, yes, 2:07.79. What a sector.
P1.
Gets the applause from Brother Todd.
Yeah, she's a bit greasy.
She was a bit
we can see
greasy,
that.
was the call.
Good first and last split. The middle was just a little bit off Jason Richards.
But the third was dynamic. Greg.
Well, Jason Richards, what about that for a lap? It must have brought a huge smile to your face. Every sector you were up.
Oh, really? I thought I had a bit of a slow start to the sector, but over the top, I was pretty happy with that. It was, you know, pretty full on, and it's lovely to get that away, actually, Rusty. I'm happy the guys have given me such a good car. Makes my job nice and easy.
Top start for the weekend. Well done.
Thank you.
However, he has been eclipsed by Rick Kelly. 2:07.79, the new benchmark, and we only have 2 cars to come. It's a Ford. Ford Performance Racing's Jason Bright. Can he eclipse this time? He is one of only 3 pole sitters this year, and he shares the title of the most successful pole man with Garth Tander. He has started on pole 3 times this year.
Outstanding job from Ford Performance Racing and Jason and Mark at Sandown, the 500 just recently. And Lee just detailing their fine form in qualifying this year. Really all clicked together for this team this year.
A lot of pressure on Bright. He was the last man to win in a Ford, and now that this Ford Performance Racing Falcon is back on song, there are big expectations from Bright. He's up by almost 1.5 tenths. That is a great start to the lap.
Compares pretty favourably even with what Mark did yesterday in ideal conditions. Did a 51.6 yesterday, Mark, so 51.8 to the first split for Jason Bright.
He's coming your way, Daz.
Yeah, he definitely hit on the cut there, Neil. Up against the fence, nice and tidy for Jason. Car looks really stiff in the rear, Neil, the way it bounces through the apex of that turn, but nice and tidy.
You saw it bouncing a little bit off the exit of turn 2 before. What he did also do then was get 100% throttle very early through Forest Elbow, which has the effect of lengthening Conrod Straight, 1,600 odd metres of it, but every extra metre counts.
This is a good lap, 2.5 tenths of a second up into the middle of the chase. And Bright here this weekend partnered with Mark Winterbottom, his successful co-driver. These 2 guys winning the Better Electrical 500 at Sandown. But does this man put it on pole? Can he set a time that's too hard to beat? Will he go better than Rick Kelly? He comes to the line. Yes, he does. A 2:07.72.
That's P1, mate. P1 at the moment. Well done.
P1 it is at the moment. There's the chairman of ProDrive in the background, David Richards.
Still had trouble changing down the gearbox into turn 1, so the clutch gears a little bit, but it made up for a little bit over the top.
Jason Bright giving us the debrief on at the start of his lap. He wasn't all that happy, but it's good enough to get him there with just 1 driver to come. But let's get back to Greg.
Well, Rick Kelly, the radio call you made, unfortunately, you've just been pipped by Jason Bright. The radio call you made to the team was the track was a bit greasy. Did you anticipate more grip?
A little bit. I guess you just don't know till you go out there. It was a little bit greasy, so I tried to wring the thing's neck a little bit. It was a little bit squirmy in a few places, but I'm pretty happy with that time. Like top 3 for us, or top 4 in qualifying here is fantastic.
I'll get him tomorrow.
Thanks, mate.
Stephen Richards' time that he set some time ago was good enough to hold Lowndes, Ingle and Murphy out. But Jason Richards then came out. His time was bettered by Kelly. Kelly's time was bettered by Bright. Does that trend continue? Does this man here, Mark Scaife, go all the way to the top and get his 3rd pole of the year? Massive cheer from the crowd on the front straight. He's our 10th and final competitor. Here we go.
Really picking the throttle up hard and early on the run up Mountain Straight. He knows the importance of trying to make every last little kilometre an hour on the run up there. Looking over his shoulder, how deep does he brake approaching turn 2? Oh, she's on the rev limiter on the run up there. Long shadows, quite hard sometimes going into the sun up here at the cutting at this time of day. So it just makes it a little hard to pick your braking spot there into the cutting. This first split's going to be critical, Lee.
It's Mark Scaife's 20th start in the big one on the mountain. and this is his 15th top 10 appearance. He shares that. He's moved up level with his good friend Glenn Seaton, and he's up. He's fastest by almost 1.5 tenths.
That virtually mirrors what he did in qualifying yesterday. He did a little shootout rehearsal earlier today. He got balked on that lap, and then he gave away the next lap, but it was enough of an indication to know, and we knew already that he had pace in the car this weekend. Lock brake on the run through the S's to the dipper. Didn't take the car offline though, but he's really getting stuck into it down here. Limiter.
Nice and tidy. Gee, he picks the throttle up early. Obviously better than anyone so far. Even before you could see the exit of the turn there, he'd opened the throttle on that car.
But look how close it is. 0.035 between Jason Bright and Mark Scaife as Scaife grabs 6th. Now a critical breaking point for him. This is where it's going to count. There's nothing between these two. On the rev limiter. Big, deep breath under brakes.
Not even 1/10 of a second between Jason Bright and Mark Scaife. There's one corner left. Does Scaife put the Holden on pole? To the line. Mark Scaife. Does he do it? Yes! A 2:07.42 to the cheers of the men in red.
Well done, good stuff.
The trend did continue. And Scaife grabs another Bathurst pole.
It's a great lap. The first split told much of the story when he did the 51.67. Made a gain going up the hill. But what a terrific front row we have with those two major teams, two top drivers in Mark Scaife and Jason Bright, Holden versus Ford.
Greg.
Well, it was a wonderful fight for pole position today, Jason Bright, but at least you've secured a spot on the front row.
I mean, that was the priority. The priority was to make it in the top 10, and then if we're up the front, we're doing all right. It's a long day tomorrow, and looking forward to getting into it.
The big question from the boys, from both Lee and Neil, was the state of the track. Everyone was trying to guess what state the track would be in at this stage of the afternoon. How did it feel?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed pretty good, but that is the unknown when you go out there at this time of day, and the last thing you want to do is damage a car before tomorrow. But I gave it a pretty good shot. It wasn't the tidiest lap that I've done around here, but I made a bit of a mess going into turn 1 and missed a gear, and I had to make up a bit of time over the top, which we seemed to do. So all in all, I don't think it was a bad lap. We were probably just behind the 8 ball a bit from turn 1 onwards.
Jason, when you look at the timesheets from all the sessions so far this weekend, it's been the red team and the blue team that have been there. It looks like it's going to be a good fight tomorrow.
It should be a great battle. I think we've got a great race car. I've said all weekend that a race car is going to be better than our qualifying car, and I still believe that. We did an 8.4 this morning on full tanks, and I think that we'll be able to race them pretty hard tomorrow.
The last Ford driver to do it, 1998. Go get them tomorrow.
Thank you.
Couple of significant points about this man here, Mark Scaife. That's his first pole on the mountain in 4 years. His last one was 2002. That year, he went on to win with his co-driver, Jim Richards. He now moves ahead of Alan Moffat to be outright second as far as Bathurst poles. Peter Brock has 6. Mark now moves to 5. Mark Howard.
Well, Lee, in the HRT garage when Mark Scaife crossed the line, it was like a game of football. People were jumping everywhere. There was high fives, Garth. Your teammate really delivered when he needed to.
Yeah, it was a great lap. We knew Bridie'd be pretty quick, and Rick did a great job this morning in practice as well, so we knew it was going to be tight. And the first sector was where we thought it would need to be, and maybe not as good across the top, but he dug it out in the final sector, and it was a really good job.
How do things shape up tomorrow? You think Mark will start the car?
Yeah, Mark will start. So basically we've just reversed the roles from what we did at Sandown. The car's really, really good as a race car. Did a run this morning on full fuel and did about 5 laps, of which were all 8.5. So looking forward to tomorrow.
You've won this race before. You know what it takes. How do you prepare tonight? What goes on tonight, then tomorrow morning when you wake up and it's the day of Bathurst?
You just go to bed, mate. As simple as that. You get up, you have breakfast, and you go racing. I mean, it's obviously it's a big day. It's the biggest day of the year as far as racing goes, but I've done it a few times now, so just try and get a good night's rest and go with the flow.
Best of luck.
Thanks, mate.
Here he is, the pole man. 3rd for 2006. His 5th on the mountain. And here's Jason Bright to say, well done, mate. You got me. You got me. They both had really dynamic, very fast third sectors. And what a way to start his defence of this Bathurst crown. He and Todd Kelly did it last year. All of Mark Scaife's Bathurst victories have come in pairs. Is this ominous? Greg's down there.
Well, Mark Scaife, what a wonderful battle between the two heavyweights of pit lane here, Ford Performance Racing and the Holden Racing team. Did it look as though to you it was the first sector that was the most critical? You seem to have had a good run there.
Yeah, well, I needed to work very hard on the first bit because I didn't think yesterday I did a good job there. And probably if you match those 2 laps up from yesterday and today, it'd probably be a 6.7 or 6.8 because there was definitely good parts to that lap. But a couple of other spots I didn't do quite a good enough job, but good enough to be there anyway.
What was wrong with it then, if that's the case? Where weren't you happy and why?
Yeah, I didn't get into Reed Park as well as I would have liked. And when I topped the rise at McPhillamy, I was a little aggressive and I didn't get it perfectly to the apex. So those couple of spots are so fast. There's probably 2 or 3 tenths just in making that really good. It's a great lap. I mean, this is the best racetrack you ever drive around.
I know there's been a lot of hype in the build-up to this weekend about the possibility of a record breaker. The conditions, I guess, were just too warm today, were they?
Yeah, I mean, you know, early this morning the cars, they do that sort of time. But late this afternoon, you know, the ambient temperature's right up now, the track temperature's up, so that's as fast as you go.
Pole positions are always special, Mark, but I guess a pole at Bathurst and for this team must feel terrific.
Yeah, and especially with all the Brock stuff, you know, I mean, I think everybody from Redland is so supportive and, you know, hoping that the Red team bring home a pretty special victory for Peter if that happens. So there's been a lot of pressure on through the week, and I'm glad that so far we've responded.
You sure have. Tomorrow's the one you want. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
Yes, congratulations to Mark Scaife. That was a mighty effort. And if you weren't aware, as a mark of respect, the front row of the grid will remain vacant as a tribute to Peter Brock and all of his achievements here at Mount Panorama. What a swing of emotion, being down there on the grid for the Peter Brock tribute and then being there while the cars came out. We'll talk more about that later, but now it's time for our Mitsubishi Fuso 3D starting grid. And just take a closer look, folks, at what stunning combinations we have. This race will be one of, if not the best. Just truly star-studded field and strong combinations, and an outstanding qualifying effort there from the Gary Rogers pair of Dean Canto and Lee Holdsworth. Canto did the qualifying. Steve Johnson, Will Davison, how good can they be today? And the master and the apprentice, Glenn Seaton and James Courtney, who was really feeling his way into V8 supercar racing. The international duo there of David Brabham, Matt Halliday, Greg Ritter and Cameron McLean, 2 non-full-time V8 racers, but have performed well here this weekend on the mountain. And the highly experienced duo of John Bowen